This is our fourth lecture, and this is available with you all. Today we are going to discuss about, we are going into the next step after the review of literature, in the next step of understanding the process of how we are going to do the research. Now, this is a very important topic to understand, because if you don't understand the basic things that we are discussing today, it will be difficult for you to do your group project. So before I move further to explaining the process of research, first of all, I request you to all please stay quiet, be seated in your places, and let others hear. If you are not interested, let others hear. Secondly, there are students who are worried about how to do the group project. So what I request you is, don't worry about the project right now. We are going step by step. So I will explain you at the right time what you are supposed to do in the project. But today, after I complete this lecture, you will get your first group assignment of the literature review. So I'll explain to you in the group how to do the first assignment that is based on your group project. Now, research process and the things we are going to cover today in our lecture today is, we are going to understand some basic elements of research, like what is a unit of analysis, what is construct, hypothesis, theories, models, proposition. These are some very basic things, but these are very important to understand, as if you don't understand them, you will get lost when you are doing the actual research. So let's start understanding a few very basic terms that we will come across in the research process. First of all, you are seeing a statement on your screen. The statement says, if the weekly offer is helping in increasing the store sales or not. This is actually a question. I forgot to convert it into a question or a statement. But you understand that this is a question I am asking myself, and maybe this is a topic for you to see if the offers, suppose some of you can take this topic and go to some malls and see the promotional schemes that they offer to customers. Do they help in increasing the store sales or not? And by increasing store sales, we will also try to see if it is significant increase or not, or it is just minor, a 0.5%, 1% increase in the sales from that store or not. So that may be a topic for some of you, one or two groups, if you are interested. So when I take that topic based on some of my readings, my literature review. And you already know that there are two types of research. One is basic research, the other is applied research. The basic research is the one that you will be doing in your class when you are not getting any project from a company. You are selecting your own topic. You are doing this for increasing your knowledge. You are doing this to contribute to the academic discipline, which is business management for our case. So here, if we look at this statement very carefully, you will notice that there are basically, this weekly offer is one main term, and the other main noun is store sales. The rest of the things are all, making the statement complete. But if you focus means you are staring at this statement. Your eyes should focus on these two terms, weekly offer and store sales. Why should you focus only on these two terms? Because these are the two main objects of study. You are asking yourself whether the weekly offer helps in increasing the store sales or not. When you are clear with this question and you know the two main items of a study, rest of the things will be very easy for you to follow. So that is the first lesson that we have to learn today. That when you engage in business research, your first task is to be absolutely clear in your research topic. Your research topic should be very clear. So when the research topic is this, within the research topic, when you write the research question, you will write full statement. But that does not mean that the entire statement is your topic or your focus of study. There are just one or two terms which are the main study topic, and that topic is basically, that is our concept. But we'll come to the concept later. The main construct of this topic, one of the main constructs that we are trying to study in this topic is store sales. Store sales. And from store sales, there will be, you have to now define, you will have to very clearly define what is the variable that you will study. So we have to be clear on two things. When we are clear on the research topic and the two items in the topic, we then go on to the next stage of asking ourselves what is the construct and what is variable. Now it will be coming in the next slides. What are these constructs and variables? But you should note down right now that within this topic, when you have selected this topic, you should be able to identify the constructs and variables. The construct here is the store sales, the weekly offer and store sales, but basically the main focus of study is store sales. Once you are clear on the store sales, you have to now also decide store sales cannot be measured. Store sales is only a term. How will you measure store sales? So you have to be more objective in defining the store sales, and you can measure it in the way of products delivered to the customers, or you can also say the profits made in that week when you announce the weekly offer, or customer turnover, how many customers came to you any of the items, we have not decided on this item, but we are just guessing, we are just trying to understand. So any of these items or collection of these items, these can be measured. I am sure you all understand what is measure, but if you are not, you can just check in the translation, what is the meaning of measurement. Store sales cannot be measured as such. Student performance cannot be measured. But when we say I want to measure the performance of students, then I will have to think of something very objective, like you can yourself guess GPA, grades, or your rating by your student, by your friends, your rating by your faculty members. These are real measurable items in performance. So please try to understand that the construct is an abstract concept, but that is the main theme of your research. That is the item you are trying to study in more details. But when you have decided on the construct, you have to now find out the measurable item, the item within the construct which you can measure, like student performance. How can you measure the performance of the student? So you can measure it in the form of GPA, or in the form of ratings, in the form of your employment in companies. So these are some of the measurable items. So when you can measure something which is derived from the construct, we call it variable. So these were the two terms you have to clear on. We'll come back to it again. But now, the real task in any research is to collect the data. And with this data, you are going to answer the question, your question. Like for example, in the example we just discussed, we want to know if the weekly offer is going to increase the sales of the store. Now that is the research topic. But the question now is, what is the variable? What is the data you want to collect? So you say, I want to collect the sales figure of the store in this week and the past week, and then I would like to compare if there was an increase or not. So if I want to collect the sales figure of the store, that means I need to talk to the store's manager and ask her to please give me the details of the sales figure, and then I can find out if there was any significant increase in the sales figure or not. So what happens? I have to be very clear on who to go for getting the data, for getting the answer to my research question. So in this case, my question is store sales or student performance or anything. So I have to be now clear on understanding the unit of analysis. Why is it important? It is important, you can see in the cloud, because it shapes what type of data you should collect for your study and who you collect it from. So that's the next very important stage. After you have decided on your topic, you know about your constructs and variables, you must understand where your data will come from, where your answer will come from. So there are some types of units you should be clear on. The most common type is individuals. So if I say student performance, obviously these are students. Students are individuals. If I say the behavior of children, I'll have to select some children to take response. Like you remember the example of yogurt that we studied in the first lecture. So obviously there the unit of analysis is children. They are, then when we say children, one by one, you will have to select a sample of 50 children, 100 children, as per your requirement. But the individual is the unit of analysis there. However, in some cases, it may be groups. And groups mean it's the collection of individuals. They are similar type of people. Now, for example, I want to know the behavior of B school students, business school students. So if I want to study the business school students, or say one department students, then I am talking about several students who are similar. In what? In their studies, in their subject chosen. They are similar. So there is one group of students who study business. There is another group of students who study arts, science. So when you are taking a group of individuals who are similar in some way, then that is called group. And group also is sometimes studied. Some of your research, some of you may choose a topic where you want to study group performance, group behavior. There the unit of analysis will become groups. The third is companies, firms, organizations. That also is a very common unit of analysis. So firm performance, corporate social responsibility, your ethical issues, all those things that you study. If your research topic is to study about ethics of a company, then your unit of analysis becomes a company, and company is an organization. If you want to study the performance of different universities, then the university is an organization. So you are now targeting a full your organization for your study. So you get response from the organization. Then the next unit of analysis can be countries also. You can also, some of you may choose to compare the consuming behavior or eating habits in the B school students in Saudi Arab and compare it with Japan. That becomes, what does it mean? It means that you are not talking only about B school students here, but you are talking about two countries. You want to compare two countries. So that also is an unit of analysis. Technology is also can be unit of analysis. Facebook, WhatsApp, ERP, softwares, etc. They are all technologies. So that also sometimes becomes your unit of analysis for research. The last is objects, web page, products, prototypes, etc. You do your research on the object. These are your units of analysis. So I have discussed these examples with you, individuals, groups, firms. The last one you can see, the point number 6, DYAD, dyad. Dyad is means, it's basically a term that means two, combination of two. But when it comes in research or business research, it may mean the topic on two companies who are interacting with each other. So if I want to know how knowledge transfer occurs between two firms, what is knowledge transfer? Knowledge transfer means information sharing, or two firms are having a joint venture, or Bin Dawood and Pepsi are connected to each other. They share information on inventory or products. All of these are knowledge transfer. So when you want to study the knowledge transfer between two firms, then in this case two firms become a group, one unit of analysis. This unit of analysis is called dyad. Dyad can also be triad when three companies are there. It can be more than, so you can become a consortium, syndicate. All these are possible unit of analysis. But what we understand basically, this is also company level unit of analysis. So we have individuals, groups, firms, countries, technology, objects. These are the possible sources of information for us, for the data. In our research, when we are clear on our research topic, we will immediately know where will I get my data from. So now comes the third term, concepts. Any topic that you will select or anything that you study has some conceptual background you want to read more on. So concepts are the items which you want to learn further, you want to explore further. These are the generalizable properties or characteristics associated with objects, events, or people. These are generalizable properties or characteristics. While objects such as a person, a firm, or a car are not concepts, their specific characteristics or behavior, such as a person's attitude toward immigrants, a firm's capacity for innovation, and a car's weight, can be viewed as concepts. So when you are talking specifically about some items, when you are talking about specifically some items, then that is called concept. So for example, weight of the car, weight of an aircraft. These items, when you say weight of the car, what is weight of the car? Weight of car becomes a concept when you are trying to take it in form of, you want to study the behavior, the aspect, the functional aspect of a car, then weight becomes a concept. So concept is something, which you want to study in detail. You have some general characteristics which gives you the concept. Culture, performance, these are all concepts, very broad property. And from concepts, from the theoretical concepts, you derive your construct. So when we say consumer behavior is a very wide topic. From the consumer behavior, we are trying to focus on online shopping behavior or behavior of customers in the malls. This becomes your construct. And that's what you can read here in the first point, that a construct is an abstract concept that is chosen, you specifically choose to explain a given phenomenon. So a construct is an abstract concept that is specifically chosen to explain a given phenomenon. Now, what we understand that on consumer behavior is my topic. I am focusing on online shopping behavior. That becomes my construct. Now, a construct can be one single concept like weight. So I can weight your GPA, your height. These are all concepts, a construct. Or you can also have something which has more than one attribute to explain it. Like, for example, a very good example here is communication skill. Communication skill means how you communicate. Now, communication, ittisal, is not just about speaking or talking, and I am sure you are all very clear now about communication, that communication is more than just knowledge or speaking or explanation. Communication is about your body language, your eye movement, your voice modulation, how you stand, how you speak, the concepts that you are emphasizing on, your presentation, all of them together become your communication skill, and that you learn in your classrooms. So when we say communication skill, it becomes different from a person's weight. Both the constructs are different. One is single dimension and other is multi-dimensional, where you have more elements to explain the item. So communication skill is an example of multi-dimensional construct, whereas weight or GPA, etc., are unidimensional construct. When the construct is clear, when we derive the construct from a theoretical concept, we come to the stage of defining the variable. And what is variable? A variable is a measurable representation of an abstract construct. Construct, we said weight. We said the other one, communication skill. But these cannot be measured. Even going back to the first example, the store sales is not anything we can measure. We have to mention what do we mean by store sales. Do we mean customers coming to your store, or do we mean the items sold from your store? What do you mean by the construct? So when you give measurable representation to the construct, it becomes a variable. Variable is a common term. You have studied it in your maths earlier, that something that changes is called variable. So in research, we have to come down to this level of deciding our variable. So suppose you say your research topic is intelligence affects employability. So the more intelligent you are, the better your chances are of getting job. Now that's a topic. You have read, you did your literature review, and you feel that there are many topics. This has been studied in other places. You found results, but you also want to check it yourself here. You see that such a research was not done here, so you want to do it here now in this country, to find out if really intelligence affects getting job. So when this topic is clear, there is a concept. The concept is employability, and also when you talk about the construct, you have very clearly intelligence and employability. It becomes your construct, but the main construct is intelligence. So now comes the question, how will you measure intelligence? So when you say, I want to study the effect of intelligence on job, Then I have to ask myself, then, okay, now this is my topic. How will I measure intelligence? So then I will say I'm going to measure intelligence by taking IQ, intelligence quotient, as my variable, and that becomes something measurable which you can measure. So you should understand that construct cannot be measured, it is abstract. But from construct you will derive, or you will convert the construct into something which you can measure, which is called variable. So IQ score becomes variable. It can be measured. You can take IQ test and get your scores. And then when you are saying IQ affects job, so you will take a sample of 100 students, see their IQ score, and see where they got the jobs. How many got jobs? How many didn't get job? So you will see what was the score of the students who got job. Did they have high IQ score or equal IQ score? If they had equal IQ score and then still they got the job, that means the IQ score or intelligence doesn't have much influence on the job. There is something else that affects the job. So that is how they are connected with each other. So when you start your literature review, what you have already done, you have studied, and I am sure you are studying in the book whatever chapters we are covering, because we have selected chapters which are very much, which are the most required. So as soon as we start the chapter, you are expected to read it in the book, and that will help others also. So when you discuss it in the class, it will help you. Now, constructs and variables, there is a relationship, and we already saw that variables are derived from the constructs. So constructs give theory. You give some statements, some theoretical statements. You say, when the weather is warm, my performance is less. When the weather is warm, I don't perform well. That is a theoretical thing. So somebody can ask you, what is the proof? Then you will go to the empirical plane to give the proof. Proof means to collect the data, analyze the data, test the hypothesis, and then prove that what you are saying is right or wrong. And you may be wrong, it's okay. So you will inform when you collect the data and find that the weather, the temperature has no effect on my performance. That is recorded, and that is very important result that you have done, contribution to. It doesn't mean, if you don't get a positive, if you don't get yes to your result, it doesn't mean that it is waste. So when you are doing your research and you get a negative, that store sales was not affected by weekly offers, it doesn't mean that it is not a good result. It is a good result, because the managers then understand that weekly offer is not helping me in sales. So what should I do? I should do something else. So every research that you do, if you do it properly, it is meaningful and it is helpful to the business and to the education, to academics. So try to understand this picture, that construct and proposition are working at theoretical plane. Here you are not doing anything operational. You don't do something in the field. You are thinking only. You are thinking based on your literature review that yes, I feel that weather affects performance. So I have two constructs. I have weather and performance. But I want to check it now, and then I'll come back again to this theoretical plane to write my result. So when I come to checking, to testing, that is my empirical plane, and that is why we are here in this course, to understand the empirical plane, to understand how are we going to perform the research. Performing the research is called empirics, the empirical aspect. So when we come to the empirical plane, we will have to convert the constructs into measurable items, variables. So when I say, does weather affect the performance of students? That is your theoretical plane. When I am coming to the empirical plane, I will have to convert weather into an independent variable, into a variable, and performance into another variable, another measurable item. So now you can think yourself that if I say weather, how will you measure weather? What will be the variable that can measure weather? It can be temperature, daily temperature. So I will say daily temperature is the independent variable and the effect is on the performance. Now I say how will you measure performance? What will be the variable that can measure the performance? So you can say the performance I will measure by the number of hours I worked today. 6 hours. I studied for 6 hours today. So then you have clear number of hours I studied and the temperature. Both of them can be measured. So when I can measure, I can test. Now you can see that there are two terms with variable. One is independent and the other is dependent. So the question is, what is independent and what is dependent? How is it different? The only difference is that both are variables. Both can be measured. The difference is one is affecting the other. One is affecting the other. Like in your classroom right now, there are many students sitting. One group of students must be listening. The other group of students is not listening. They are making noise. So if they are making noise, they are affecting the listening of those who want to listen. So they become independent variable. They are making noises. And those who want to listen but they are affected, they are the dependent variable. So independent variable are those who are the cause, who affect others. They are not affected. Although in reality, this is not true. When you will read more, when you go to higher studies, you will see none of the variables are independent. It is not possible. Something will be there in external plane which will affect it. So you have to assume many things to give a theory. But right now we will not get into that. We have to understand that in the case of store sales and weekly offer, I'm sure you can, if you have listened to me properly, you can answer which is independent variable and which is the dependent variable. If I say weekly offer and if I say store sales, which is dependent and which is independent? Independent is the weekly offer and dependent is the store sales, because I am feeling that when I increase the weekly offer, my sales also increases. So this picture you should understand that to do a research, you are coming down from your literature review, decided on your topic, you then are focusing on your constructs. Main concept gives rise to the constructs. Then you want to see which construct is affecting the other. After you are clear on your constructs, you then try to convert the constructs into variable. So variable is something which can be measured. Please make sure that you memorize this. Construct is abstract. Variable is the measurable construct. Something which you can measure. Temperature, intelligence quotient, your GPA, all of these are variables. So this is the relationship between constructs and variables, and this is research. This is the main theme of research. Now you may not have a very clear idea right now how this functions, but when you will keep on reading articles, when you are moving on with your studies and you are doing it in a proper manner, you will understand what you are seeing right now here in this picture, the theoretical plane and the empirical plane. So let me just revise again and to make it clear to you. What we are seeing here is that there is a relationship going on. The relationship is there between construct A, construct B, construct A and independent variable, construct B and dependent variable. Now construct A, you see that it is affecting construct B, and you are calling it proposition. Independent variable coming from construct A, it is affecting the dependent variable, and the arrow is called hypothesis. So proposition is a guess which cannot be measured. Hypothesis is a guess. I hope you all know what is a guess. G-U-E-S-S, guess. Hypothesis is a guess that you can measure because you have variables. You have converted your idea into measurable statement, so you can measure the performance of students. You can measure the performance of students in GPA. You can also measure the weather conditions in temperature. So temperature and the GPA are measurable items. One is independent variable, the other is dependent. And when I say that temperature affects performance of students, temperature affects the GPA of the students, this is called hypothesis. When I say in clear measurable terms that temperature, I can measure temperature, affects, so you can see the arrow, just look at the arrow. So temperature is the independent variable. I am saying temperature affects, so you look at the arrow, the dependent variable GPA. This becomes your hypothesis. And when I say weather affects student performance, this is a proposition. So you are perhaps getting the clear idea that in proposition we are talking about constructs. Constructs cannot be measured. They are only an idea. So I'm saying weather. Now weather can be anything. Weather can be temperature, humidity, wind, anything can be weather. But when I am clearly saying that by weather, I mean temperature, temperature can be measured. So when I can measure temperature, I am calling it an independent variable. And I am saying that temperature affects the GPA of students. And GPA is indicating the performance of the students. So when I am very clear on the variables, I call it hypothesis. And that is the key to your research. Unless you reach this stage of research where you are able to make a guess in clear measurable terms, in clear terms of variables, you will not be able to collect data, do the analysis and give your results. So you have to understand that when you are talking about your group project, you have to reach till this stage of defining your hypothesis. I am sure some of you might have reached here, but many will reach here in due time. So the thing that you are saying today, or the lecture that we are discussing today, is the most important part of this process. you have to be very clear. So you read and keep discussing, because you have to be clear with proposition, hypothesis, constructs, variables, independent, dependent variables. So once again, what we have discussed, we discussed about we started with a statement of the weekly offer and store sales. We said store sales cannot be measured. We have to define it. We have to say, for me, store sales is product delivered. But remember, listen to me carefully. Remember, all of these decisions, all of these ideas, you are not making yourself. Please note this down very carefully, all of you. We are not making up any idea. We are all using our past readings. In the literature review, what you have read will give you the decision, the idea, because unless you refer to the literature, unless you refer to some past articles, your decision will not be accepted in practical research, because people will ask you, who told you that profit is a variable for store sales? Because in research, there is nothing like, I just feel. It is not like a feeling. It has to come from a proper source. So I will quote that, see, in this literature, in this article, this researcher took profit as a measure of store sales, or customer turnover as a measure of store sales. So I am also taking that. Or there is a very common theory, like you say there is a theory of relativity by Albert Einstein. So that's why I am taking that variable. So we have to be clear on one thing, that everything that we are deciding in this process of research is coming from, not from anywhere in the air. It is coming from the past articles, studies. That is why your previous chapter, the review of literature, becomes very, very important. So all the things will become clear if you start reading more. I am sure that all the groups, many groups among you are already started to have already started to read on their topics. Because, in your topic, whatever you chose, you will, if you are really doing it well, you will enjoy learning that topic. And when you come to the field to do the actual research, you will actually enjoy very much that, okay, I said that I feel that the weather affects performance. That was my feeling on my past reading. And I collected the data, I did the analysis, and I found the result that it's true. So that becomes a source of immense, one achievement is you can get your name published. You will find your article published somewhere. And the other is that you will get some immense satisfaction that I did it practically. I performed the research and found the result. And it was a good research. So the next thing we discussed was unit of analysis. You have to be very clear with unit of analysis. So whatever topic you have chosen, now if you are clear with the variables, you have to next ask, what is the unit of analysis? Now, in literature review, before you started the literature review, you had a concept in mind. You had decided that I am going to study the technology acceptance. I am going to study consumer behavior, culture, group performance, etc., etc., anything. So from concept, you develop the construct. You construct, you define what you want to study in your research. When you define the item you want to study and you have a conceptual background, you have to convert that item into measurable quantity, measurable item. And I gave you many examples, and one of them is here also, intelligence and IQ score. Intelligence is a construct, IQ score is a variable, because variable is something that you can measure, and you can say this is the representation of intelligence. And finally, we have seen now is the relationship between constructs and variables, and how our research, in articles you see there are, if you have gone through articles, you will see there is an introduction, there is a literature review, there is research methods, findings and conclusion. All the articles that you have read so far, you will see these sections in every article. Don't make noise, please help others to understand. So in the theoretical plane, we understand the theoretical plane by our literature review. We read the articles, we did a thorough literature review, and from there we discussed or decided our variables. Okay, now again, just final point on variables. Please try to understand. One variable is independent, the other variable is dependent. Independent variable means the variable which is affecting the other, like weekly offer, intelligence, temperature. We just discussed these examples. All of these factors we discussed that they are affecting the performance of the other variable. Like for example, student performance, the store sales, the GPA of the student. So the item, the variable which is affected by the independent variable, that is called dependent variable. And the full statement when you will write, this picture should be there with you always. And when you write, when you write hypothesis, this picture will help you a lot. You will simply, what you will do, you will start the statement, store say temperature affects GPA of the students. This becomes your hypothesis. So hypothesis is clear to you. Now after hypothesis, what you are supposed to do, that is future job, that the next lecture, not now. So this picture should be clear to you. Now once the picture is clear, this perhaps you are not doing now at this stage, but you should know in research that there is something called nomological network. Nomological network, very attractive name. What is nomological network? Now what we are doing is we are going back, we are looking at this, and they have some similarity. What similarity is there? We are talking about our research problem now. Now you look at here, this is a very beautiful example of a research. You can see some arrows, and please try to focus on what we are discussing, all of you. I'm sure the picture is beautiful, so you will enjoy this. Please focus on the picture and try to understand that there you can see all of them are variables. Now if I ask you what is the difference between a variable and a construct, I'm sure many of you are now clear. A variable can be measured and construct cannot be measured. A variable is a measurable construct. So here, when we are talking about a nomological network, we are talking about all variables arranged in the order of cause and effect. So you can see here that intelligence. And intelligence, how are we measuring? By IQ score. So my IQ score is the independent variable. Then comes the academic achievement. You see the arrow going from here. You can, without even telling you what is independent, you can say that intelligence is independent because the arrow is moving from this to achievement. Academic achievement. Now academic achievement, how to measure? Okay, academic achievement can be measured by GPA. What else? How can you say that academic achievement? I can say many other factors. So I can take one or more than one factors. Now going back to one slide on construct, you remember we discussed about two types of constructs. One was unidimensional, the other was multidimensional constructs. So here we can say that academic achievement, I can take unidimensional construct or I can say multidimensional construct, anything. So again, on top you can see that there is another name called moderating variable, and here there is another item called effort. All of you understand effort. Effort means hard work. This moderating variable of effort adds to the effect on intelligence. Now what do you understand? Very clear. This is very clear to understand. Very easy. It is saying, if I remove this, it is saying that intelligence affects academic achievement. IQ score affects GPA of the students. But then comes this moderating variable, effort. And how can we characterize effort? Say, how can you characterize? Say, number of hours you work daily, you study daily. That becomes your effort. So when you add this, obviously, all of us know that without hard work, just sitting in the class, is of no use, or disturbing the class is of no use. But when you sit in the class and you also put effort in understanding, that becomes a variable, very important force in your learning. You have to put in effort to learn. Without putting in effort, you will not learn at all. So when you come to the class, when any teacher is teaching and you are not putting in effort, all your intelligence will go in vain. So this is, and how do you know this? Not by in air, but you have some, you are doing this research, you have studied a lot. So in previous articles you studied that yes, there is something called effort also. Now I am predicting that intelligence and effort together, and you see plus sign, positively affect academic achievement. And then if your academic achievement is good, it finally results in your better earning potential. Your job or anything, you do your business, you do your job, it will be affected by your academic achievement. So academic achievement is not now the final variable, it is called the mediating variable. Unless your intelligence results in good results, good academic results, you cannot have good job, or you cannot start a good business, or you cannot do well in your higher studies, and finally the earning potential will go down. Your capacity to earn your monthly income will be less. So what do we understand? This is a very good example, and you should keep this on your walls and everywhere to remember that this is important. Intelligence is important, and you must know that intelligence is not by birth. Intelligence again is a very descriptive thing. You have to understand that intelligence doesn't come all from by birth. Only a part comes from birth. The rest, it is developed as we put, we study, we read, the knowledge that we gain, that improves our intelligence. Then comes the most important thing, which adds to the intelligence, is effort. Without effort, your academic achievement is very severely affected, but we don't know how much. That will be when that you will understand when you do this research. So you will go to the field and you will collect data. And now another question that you should ask is, what is the unit of analysis for my research, who is the unit of analysis? So the overall, you can see that the main subject of research here is students. So the unit of analysis is individual. In the unit of analysis is individuals. So this is called, this full description of the research is called nomological network. Nomological, nomological network. And we call it, the definition of nomological network is the overall network of relationships. These are the relationships. In research, when you make a diagram, you make it using arrow. Plus means positive, minus means negative. Negative means if you put more intelligence, your academic achievement goes down. But no, that is not true. We know from past studies that effort and intelligence both positively affect academic achievement, and academic achievement positively affect earning potential. So the overall network of relationships between a set of related constructs is called a nomological network. Okay, so now coming to the next part. The next part is proposition. As we have already seen, we will just see the definitions and then move on. Here you can see proposition, and I hope proposition, hypothesis, construct, variable, theory, and empirical. These terms are coming close to you. You are able to understand these terms now clearly. If you are not, no problem. You note, but note down these on a sheet of paper. Keep on first seeing them, making yourself familiar with them, and also try to see the meanings, translate it into Arabic, and try to be as familiar with these terms as possible. So you saw here proposition and hypothesis. One arrow shows proposition, the other arrow shows hypothesis. What is proposition? Proposition identifies and states patterns of relationship between constructs. Now we have already studied this, that between the constructs. And what is construct? Construct is the item we want to study in our research. Where have we got this construct from? From the concept, from the main conceptual framework that we chose for our study. So within human resource management, somebody is interested in training. So training becomes your topic. Within training, you are now choosing a main concept like training need analysis, learning curve. Many things are there based on your interest. From there, you define your constructs. When you define your constructs, now you are saying that one construct is affecting the other construct. This relationship is called proposition. Such patterns of relationships are called propositions. A proposition is a tentative and conjectural relationship. Conjecture means guess. You are guessing that, yeah, I feel this may happen. Temperature, weather may affect performance of the students. Light in your room may affect the performance of your classroom. That is a guess. And you are making it in a very clear form, clear statement that this is going to be so. So let's look at it again back. Construct A affects construct B. Now, what is construct A? Weather, intelligence, anything. What is construct B? We are saying that weather is affecting performance, intelligence is affecting job performance, this and that, all those things that you will come till this result, till this stage will define your proposition. It's a guess. And another example of we have just seen The example of proposition is construct here is student intelligence and academic achievement. So if you have the printout, you can underline it. Now you try to recognize yourself. What are the constructs? So here the construct is student intelligence and academic achievement. But the full statement is now, because you are clear with the relationship, you say, yeah, I know, I feel based on my studies that an increase in student intelligence causes an increase in their academic achievement. So that becomes your proposition. So propositions are generally derived on logic or empirical observations. Propositions are generally derived based on logic or empirical observations. The names for them, if you are doing it on logic, you are just thinking, which is not something we do now at this stage. You do it when you become very senior researcher. At this stage, we all do empirical observations. We do it on empirical observations. The deduction we do based on others' logic, other theories. So one is called deduction, the other is called induction. Now hypothesis, we have already discussed. We are just seeing the academic definitions. Hypothesis is the empirical formulation of propositions stated as relationships between variables. This is called hypothesis, right? So when you convert the constructs into variables and you say, okay, the proposition you had already stated, but now you are telling it in terms of measurable items, variables, you call it hypothesis. So again, we go back to this same picture. Hypothesis is coming from the construct. Construct is converted into variable. Variable is IQ score. Dependent variable is the GPA. And when we say that IQ score affects the GPA of students, it is called hypothesis. And then we can test it by taking the GPA score of the students. We can test it. So that's hypothesis. And example of hypothesis, example is students' IQ scores have positive effects on their academic achievement. Now students' IQ score is measurable. Academic achievement, you are saying that I want to measure it in way of the GPA. When you convert the constructs into measurable items, it becomes variable. And when you state it in this way, like students' IQ scores have positive effects on their academic achievement, it is called hypothesis. They are very close. Proposition and hypothesis are very close, and you saw they are related to each other. In the theoretical plane, it is proposition. In the empirical plane, it is hypothesis. What is empirical? Empirical means that you are going to test. You are going to test. Proposition cannot be tested empirically. Empirically, you have to test it by making it measurable. And it is clear here in the second point, you can see that intelligence is the independent variable and academic achievement is the dependent variable. Intelligence is the independent variable, and the academic achievement, the GPA, is the dependent variable. One is called the cause, the other is called the effect. Finally, we come to the grand result. The grand result is the theory. Now, theory is not something we are aiming at this stage in a 2-month project or 3 months project, we cannot develop a theory. We can at the best contribute to a part to some theory which is already there, because theory means it is a set of systematically interrelated constructs and propositions intended to explain and predict a phenomenon or behavior of interest within certain boundary conditions and assumptions. So a theory is a set of systematically interrelated constructs and propositions intended to explain and predict a phenomenon or behavior of interest within certain boundary conditions and assumptions. That is theory. You have to remember this definition. A theory, nazariyat. What are theory? Theory is now we are very clear with a functional definition of theory, that it is a systematically interrelated constructs and propositions. Where has it come from? From the empirical results. So when you collect empirical results, hypothesis, test hypothesis, many hypotheses, finally you write a theory like culture theory, right? You say theory of consumer behavior, of financial behavior. So theory of theories, they are the final result of many empirical works, and that is why only your research is not enough for making a theory. People around the world are doing research, they are contributing to your topic. When you will do the literature review, I hope many of you have done, you will see that not just you, but many in the world have already done what you are planning to do, and they are all contributing to the development of a theory. And when you convert the theory in picture form, in very layman term, I can say it is called a model. A model is a representation of all or part of a system that is constructed to study that system. And the thing that we saw just now, this is a model. This is a model. So you have given the model and you have written the theory. Now you can test this theory. And this is how the model is created. You do empirical observations, you read the theories, go to the conclusions, then you test it, specify relationships, and give the final model. So this is how theory and model are related. So theory is mainly like a proposition. You write, you find results, you do the literature review, and then you convert it into a form of picture of showing the relationship between the variables or the constructs and the propositions, and then both of them together will give you the exact idea of what you are doing, what is the result. So theory is represented in pictorial form as a model. Okay, I think that is enough for today. I'll not take you in more details in the next slides. We will do it in the next lecture. We stop here. And I have already recorded the lecture in my laptop, what I just spoke to you.